There he is. But your
Hey,
mic
Ali.
is on mute. We gotta change that, right? Let's do that for you. There we go. I think we have it unmuted. Oh, we can't unmute you. There we
Oh,
go.
my bad, my bad. I was on mute on my end. I couldn't unmute. I should have done that. All right. Hi, Kyle. Hi, Brian. How are you guys doing?
Doing
Doing
great, man.
really, really well. Glad to have you here, Ali. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Why are you here? What is this thing with game development and making life easier for people? What?
Awesome. Awesome. I'll talk about it. So, let's start off with who I am. I am Ali. Full name Ali Asghar Dahatwala. I am a software development manager here at AWS Game Tech Services. And today I'm super excited to talk to you guys about our newest open source solution for game developers, AWS GameKit. Now,
Oh,
AWS GameKit is I'm super excited about this product. Like, my
I
entire
mean,
team
as
is
you should.
super
Hey,
excited.
hey, I'm
I'm
gonna tell you
excited about
right
it
now.
too.
Just hearing your title, I was getting a little bit jealous. I was like, oh my goodness, I mean, that sounds like the dream right there.
Yeah, I wanted to give him a virtual high five for this, but I was like, man, this is gonna be
We'll
awesome.
do that. High five. uh, so um, so I want to tell a little bit about my background. Like, I've been a gamer actually for a super long time from the days of Atari consoles and stuff. So I've really loved games. I like MMORPGs and actions in shooter games and RTSs, everything in there. So this product has been built by a bunch of game developers and gamers for our game developers, and it is a solution that essentially lets you build and deploy game backend features in few easy steps right from your game engine. The game developers are used to working in game engines, things like Unity, Unreal. We're releasing for Unreal today. We'll talk about it later in our demo as well. But we have plans to release it for Unity and support other platforms as well. And this makes it super easy for game developers to build those game backend features.
Got it. Okay, so I have spent some time looking into game development, so I am familiar with names like Unreal and Unity. But for anybody that's not familiar with game development, these are game engines, essential. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but essentially they help build out the game by providing you an engine that helps with graphics and physics and things like that, and allow the developers to really actually build the game. And what we're talking about here today with AWS GameKit is that essentially this is some type of software or plugin that is
Yeah.
going to work directly with the engine that somebody's already using.
Absolutely, Kyle. Absolutely. So, game developers out there are usually are, as we kind of talked about, are using one of these game engines to build their games nowadays because it's makes it so much easier instead of having to figure out the lighting, to figure out physics, to figure out some of these things. They use these game engines to kind of like build the games on top of it. So they're actually worrying about the game mechanics, right? So that's one part of it. Like, game development in general has like two broad aspects, right? One, which is super important and most customer focused, is the game mechanics. How is the game going to work? How is the customer going to interact with the game? What features there are in the game itself? And then there's this always a second and super important part of it, which is building undifferentiated but important game backend features and services to support them. Examples of things like these might be like identity or achievement. These are things that some of the game developers might be familiar with. Um, well, a lot of times, like game developers are so usually experts at game engine, but don't really have as much experience with cloud services and end up spending months in just kind of like putting together these backend services and then connecting them together with their game engine to call them from the game. And this really slows down the development time for games for the game developers. And that's where we want to help. That's why we're coming in with our solution, which is AWS GameKit, to bring down this time of going from 0 to 60 for a game developer in building a backend service and make it super easy for them.
Okay,
That's
and
awesome.
how does GameKit do that? So you talked a little bit about common features, signing in a user so that they, all of their loot or whatever it is associated with their account, a common game feature, I guess. And then you also kind of mentioned achievements. So like how exactly, like where does GameKit fit into this?
Absolutely. Okay. So the way we have GameKit works right now is it's an engine plugin that you can download. We'll talk more about that later from Unreal Marketplace. Right now, we are supporting the Unreal Engine. You can go and download it right there, or you can download it from the AWS website, install it as a plugin into your game editor, and then you can use this plugin to select the features that you need for your game. Today, we are shipping out with 4 features that are supported out of the box: identity and auth, achievements, user game state saving, and user gameplay data. We'll talk a little more about what each of these features means. But to integrate these features into your game, all it takes right now is for you to punch in your AWS credentials, connect with your AWS account, and then hit deploy within this engine, within this plugin. And then the plugin takes care of the rest of it.
Wait, hold,
Uh,
hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait a second. You're not just gonna skip over that. So let me clarify. Just to make sure I'm understanding. So you're saying that instead of tying different services together to make a feature, that GameKit is providing whole features that can be added directly to the game engine using the GameKit plugin?
That is correct, Carl. That is correct. So
Okay.
the magic lies in the CloudFormation templates. We talked about that in our breaking news as well. I think like a lot of our listeners as well might be aware of CloudFormation and CloudFormation templates. But for those that are not familiar with CloudFormation, uh, it is basically like a config file that has in simple English text and some commands in there, which tells AWS in the backend how to kind of stitch these services together. And on our end, we've created these CloudFormation templates for each of these features that I mentioned earlier, talking and figuring this out from the community, surveying a lot of our solutions architect and game developers out there to see how are they building these features right now, and then coming up with a gold standard that lets us kind of stitch a bunch of this AWS backend services together using the CloudFormation templates. And then once with the game engine plugin, you basically, when you hit the deploy button, it takes this CloudFormation template, sends it over to AWS CloudFormation to interpret, and then AWS CloudFormation does its magic and then reads that config and builds those services based on the configuration right there.
Now
It's
I had
good
a
when Brian's smiling. Look at
oh
that smile.
yeah,
Look at
yeah. Because the biggest thing is like I actually kind of got to really dig deep into this, and what I found was really cool about this is when you push a button and you deploy this back end, you're just not like spinning up just one little kind of loose architecture. You're actually spinning up a formatted, well architected architecture, right? And then a lot of this is serverless, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely, Brian. So we right now we are doing a lot of these things serverless, and we wanted to make sure that customers are onto the latest architecture, which we consider as the gold standard, which the customer base has told us is what works for them. And we've made this serverless. So the services that we're using behind, you only use these services as and when you need them. So examples of services that we're using right now is one for the processing of backend is AWS Lambda, and that lets us kind of like create these backend business logic right in there, which only spins up when there's a request for it. We also stitch together things like Amazon S3, AWS API Gateway, CloudFront, CloudWatch, All of these pieces are kind of like stitched in together for you, so that you don't have to worry about them. But because you have these CloudFormation templates are provided along with the plugin. So if you wanted to go under the hood and look what is going on, you can. You can take a look at what is happening inside the CloudFormation template. You can log onto the AWS console, which I'll show you a little later, and you can say what is deployed as part of each of the stack, what is happening behind the scenes. So everything happens in your own AWS account. So all these services that are spun up are in your own AWS account. You own all these services. You manage them. You can scale them. We start them off for you. So you have full control and customizability of these packet services.
Awesome.
All right. I see that. Look at him. Look at that smile.
I'm
how
just
you know.
smiling in here, man. This is awesome. Yeah, this is super awesome.
All right, Ali. Now you got Brian smiling. You already got me a little bit smiling, but no, I need to see this in action. You have a demo for us?
Absolutely. All right. Well,
All
let's
right.
get into it.
Let's see this.
Cool. All right. So what are you looking at right now? With game developers who's familiar, I'm looking at an Unreal Engine editor right now where it says create a new project. I have a few projects set up right now for you, so we can talk to them. For a new for somebody who's creating a new project, you probably just go into games. We'll say next. Select blank for now. We start off with a C++ project on this one. Give it some name for now. My project one is good for now. You create that project. It takes its time. And then after that, you integrate your plugin into it. I would go into too much details in there. It's basically just copying the plugin into a plugins folder and enabling it. So I'm going to switch over to a project, which I already have the plugin installed in. So you can kind of take a look at how it looks like once it's in there.
Okay.
All right. So this one is simply the project which just has the plugin in there. To access the plugin, you would go into settings. You go into project settings. My window's always going to the other window first. And once you have the plugin installed, it shows up under plugins as AWS GameKit. Once you have the project, once you have the plugin installed, you can give it a title. For now, I'm just going to call it 000331 for now. What you need is an access key and a secret so that you can access to your AWS account. We have documentation provided for people who are not familiar with creating AWS accounts. I'm sure a lot of people here are already familiar on creating AWS accounts. If you're not, you could just go ahead and create an AWS account. And then we also provide you some scripts so that if you need to, because there are some policies to be associated with these accounts, we have a simple Python script which lets you just do that once you run it and supply the credentials. I've already done that beforehand, and so I'm just gonna stick in my credentials in here.
Got it. So for anybody that's watching that's not familiar with this process, this is usually something that I believe that you would go through IAM, right? And you could essentially get an access key ID, and then you would have your secret access key. And this just is a way that you can say, okay, I want to allow these permissions for this specific identity. So this way you can lock it down to whatever services that you actually need. And if for whatever reason, if somebody gets access to this confidential information, they would only be able to abuse the services that are associated with it, as opposed to going all out and trying to, I don't know, mine cryptocurrency or something weird like that. So just a little rundown.
Absolutely. This is with security in mind, and that's why you never want to use your admin access ID and secret key in this. You want to create a burner user accounts, which I've done right now. Is just, and then the script that is provided with AWS GameKit also does some of these things for you. So you kind of just provided these credentials are not saved as part of, just now, this is not saved as part of the project settings or anywhere inside GameKit. This, we access the AWS credentials in the save file, which is inside your home directory. This just lets you do it easily. So once you have these in, we have this little handy thing that pops out the AWS account ID, just so it knows it's the right one. You submit that. It does a little bit of initialization, and then you are pretty much ready to go. Underneath this, you will see as we have 4 features. So before I dive into that, I also wanted to kind of call out, right now we actually have a bunch of, I'll just show this one. We have pre-configured a few environments, so you can actually set up so that you can have multiple environments in which you want to test your game under. And right now, as of now, we support 17 regions. We plan to add more regions to this, so you can kind of like deploy it to any region that you want. Okay, let's go back to this. We'll just submit that. And so after it's submitted in, then you have a list of 4 features in here. So you can see identity and auth. You can see achievements. You'll see game state cloud saving and user gameplay data. These are the 4 features that are available to you. So identity and auth is kind of like a core feature because we want to make sure that everything that is created in the backend is secure and only authorized access is available to it. So that's one of the reasons why this is one of the first things you want to deploy before deploying any of the other ones, which it'll not let you deploy. Out of the box, we support email and password, as well as 3P authentication with Facebook. You can also customize this and kind of add more 3P authorizers or your own custom authorizer if you want to. And then once you have this example, if you want to do this, you basically need an app ID and an app secret from Facebook to be able to connect to them. And then put it out for now, and then you hit create. It kind of gives you a little bit of a warning right now, just a kind of message just said, hey, you might start incurring charges based on your usage. Most of the time, the way we have configured this is stays under the AWS free tier to start off with for the development. And then, I mean, obviously it depends on your account. And if you're outside of AWS free tier, then it starts charging you for what you use. And we hit deploy.
Could you tell us a little bit more about free tier? Because, you know, when we hear that word, oh, you have to pay or you might incur charges. Could you tell us a little bit about what somebody that takes advantage of the free tier would be able to do, or like what could they expect?
Absolutely. Under the free tier, so if that's an account that you've just created, it would usually get AWS free tier for 1 year. And then all the services right now and all the features can be used without incurring any charges. As long as you kind of stay within the limits. If your usage goes about like we have documentation, and there's also documentation on AWS console, like what the limits on each of the services are. We also tell you within what services are getting used. For example, for identity and auth, we're going to use API Gateway, we're going to use CloudWatch, we're going to use Cognito, we're going to use DynamoDB, IAM, key management, and Lambda. There's a lot of stuff that is getting used in the back to kind of create this service for you.
Well, it's a very complex feature, right?
It is, yeah. And all of these kind of like getting tied together. Like somebody who wants to put together will probably have to spend months in just kind of like deciphering these things, putting in just right, and then also spend time in integrating this into the engine. We're taking all of this work out for game developers and making it just as easy as a couple of clicks.
And just to clarify again with the pricing, so is this still following that same model for where it's like you pay for what you use essentially? Absolutely.
Each of these services are created within your own AWS account. There are no other services beyond the basic AWS services that are provided. So there is nothing hidden in this. Whatever services you see on your console are what you get as part of each of the feature.
Yeah. So something that I've noticed is like if you're usually billing out a test demo application with a lot of the different AWS services. Usually there's like there will be fees that will be charged based off of what you use, but of a lot of the times when I'm just building out something, testing it out, it does seem to be relatively affordable. And it once again just comes down to how many resources you're using and how often you're using them.
Yeah, for simple development, just testing things out and putting things together, you generally will not incur any charges. The usage is very low to stay within AWS free tier.
Yeah.
Okay. As you can see, this deploying resources takes a while. I'm gonna jump to a different one. So by the way, you can there is an output window as well, where you will see some of these things going on. So while you're wondering what is happening, you can actually go in and look at, ignore some of those messagings, which are in red and yellow for now. There are some things to do with my connectivity and internet and stuff like that. But the ones which are kind of coming in from log AWS GameKit are the ones which are telling me what is happening in the background right now. And if you were to log into CloudFormation console, you would see the same things happening there. It takes like a few minutes for things to kind of like finish up, and I think it just did. Let's bring up that page again, and we'll see.
Yeah, keep in mind that when you're using something like GameKit, where it's taking advantage of CloudFormation, it's spinning up all these different resources for you, and those things kind of take some time. But it's usually the first time is usually the longest.
That's right, Carl. So you basically have to go through this process only the first time you're setting up the features. You don't have to do this every time. Once the services have been created in the back end, then you can redeploy them when you make any changes. I'll show a little bit in how you do that as well. But once you do that, it takes a little bit while to that, but it's faster every time. And so similarly, you have achievements feature, game state cloud saving, and user gameplay data. I'd love to talk a little bit about achievements. So I'm going to move to, so I wanted to just show quickly how to deploy features in here. I'm going to move to another demo where I have everything deployed already, so we don't have to wait for all the rest of them to deploy.
Okay.
Yeah. It's like a cooking show, you know?
There we go.
I show the bacon and I show the cake, you know?
Like a couple of minutes later, yes.
Set to 400 and leave in the oven for half an hour. All right.
Yeah, let it bake. Gotta let it bake.
There we go. Okay. Now I'm onto the right demo. So this one, I just set it up earlier in the morning. So this is still fresh. It just takes like maybe a half an hour for me to just set up all 4 features all together. So let's take a look at that.
He said that it took him half an hour to set up 4 whole game features. That's what he just said.
I know.
Just so you know.
And well
If you ever-
architected too. In the
If you've
cloud.
ever done development at all, doing anything in a half an hour is not that easy.
That was our aim, to kind of like make it as easy and quick for somebody to kind of like build these features, deploy them, and make updates to them. So you can see this. So these are all the features right now that's deployed. I'm also going to show you a little bit on the CloudFormation side what this looks like.
Ooh, Brian's eyes are opening up.
Oh yeah. I'm just amazed that you can use CloudFormation from your game plugin. I mean, it's super cool, right? You can just control all this from the game plugin. You don't have to log into the AWS console if you don't want to, right? So this is awesome.
Absolutely.
Meeting developers where they're at. You know,
Yeah. So if you didn't care about what's happening in the background at all, you never have to leave your game engine. You can just do everything you want in the game engine and integrate with the plugin. If you wanted to go look under the hood, you can log on to the AWS console, and then if you go under and search for CloudFormation, usually like that, and then pull it up, and then look at the stacks, you'll see the stacks created for you. So like you look based on the game name, and so it's a little easy to identify. So GameKit dev is the environment, GameKit is your game name that you're using, and main is like the main stack that we used for other things in there. And then you can kind of see identity CloudWatch. We'll talk about CloudWatch as well. So that also comes along with this. So we pre-configure CloudWatch dashboards. And what is CloudWatch? I'll show you in a minute. So each of these features essentially has a stack. And then if you clicked on any one of these, let's say we looked at achievements, you should be able to see what the stack info is, what the resources under them are. And all of this is just available for you to look at if you need to. So you can look at the events is just going to tell you what happened in the past. So you can kind of like see probably this was kind of like deployed in about 5 minutes or more. So took to create the achievements feature in the backend. And then these are the resources that it is using right now. And these are all defined within the CloudFormation template. You can take a look at the template here, or you can also take a look at the template in the source code itself. And I'll show that to you in a minute as well.
Got it.
Very cool.
So we talked about like CloudWatch, and CloudWatch is a way for us to kind of see what's happening in terms of the resource usage. This is kind of more around like, hey, you want to see if the calls are getting made. So for each of the features, we create a CloudWatch dashboard. Achievements, user gameplay data, identity and auth, game state cloud saving. And if you go into the CloudWatch, so I pulled up one for identity and auth. I've been using that a little bit in the morning so I could generate some data. So you can kind of like see, you can get information around all the different functions that are behind the scene. For example, get user, we call that a little bit in there. And then if you kind of look at, go all the way to the bottom, you can also, it also tells you what your DynamoDB usages and other things as well. So API gateways in there, there's DynamoDB in there, there's Cognito in there. So we kind of like stitched all of these things together in one place for you, so that you don't have to do this yourself, and we kind of like provide this to you.
That's awesome. So like at a glance, you could kind of take a look at what is going on and what your customers might be experiencing with the game.
Absolutely. So this is your way to look at what's happening behind the scenes in terms of your services, in terms of latency, in terms of read capacity, in terms of the requests that are coming in, all of those things that you might want to have as part of like your ops dashboard.
Got it.
Yeah. Again, just well architected out of the box, right? From just pushing the button. You got a dashboard, you got performance. It's just really awesome.
And it's still new. Like
Yeah,
it's like never finished, right? Never finished.
Yeah, we've got a lot more that we planned for. All right. So jumping back into our demo, I wanted to kind of like start showing a little bit more on each of the features a little bit. So let's start with identity and auth. So we looked at a part of it, which was now we looked at deployment. Now we're going to look at a little bit about like how do I actually interact with these things from within the game, right? You got all these features, they're all there in the back end. How do I use them, right? That's the next question. So GameKit comes in with both C++ examples and Blueprint examples. So this, for a lot of the people, this might be like new terms, right? What is C++ examples? What are Blueprint examples? So within Unreal, within the Unreal Engine, there's two ways in which you can do things, which is a lot of the coding in Unreal is in C++. So that's why we wanted to make sure we had the C++ samples and examples available to everybody. So let's look at that. Just a second. So if we look at identity example for now, all you have to do is pull this little spear, which is the identity example. To get to them, you basically, on the left-hand side, there is the content browser, and you go to AWS GameKit C++ classes, AWS GameKit editor, and then under public, there's identity. And all of this is actually, again, explained very well in our documentation and our videos as well. So you can kind of take a look at them. What this basically lets you do is just kind of like look at, and so on the right-hand side, you can see some of these samples. These are just ways for you to just call the API, for you to just test them. And then it also, accompanying with this is the code itself. So if you were to like just double click on this one, this will open up in your Visual Editor. Let me just open this up in my Visual Studio. Give me a second while I find my right window. There we go. Okay. So one of the things that we talked about again earlier was like, hey, everything's open source. All the source code is available to you right within the plugin. We'll talk about how to get to the source code later as well, but this is one of the ways. Uh, game developers are probably familiar with this one. When you are working with Unreal Engine, you have the Unreal Engine, and you're writing some of the C++ code, and usually you're using Visual Studio to write most of your code. So I'm just going to show you how this looks like within Visual Studio. So as soon as you like double click on that, it opens up AWS GameKit identity examples. And then each of these are just kind of calls that you can make. And the idea for us is that, hey, you can test these out yourself. And then once you're ready to kind of integrate them, just kind of copy paste what you need. So kind of removing most of the boilerplate work out of you and just kind of like, hey, I need to just call the register API, or I want to call resend confirmation code API. You can just copy paste this right into your game and get it going. So this is one way of integrating things. We also provide an alternate way to do that, which is kind of the visual way to do this. So it's going to remove this from there. Second. And then what we have in there are what we call blueprint examples. And so let's look at identity again. I pull this up into my level, and then I hit just the play button. Boom. And then you can see that we have the UIs pre-created for you. So you can actually take these UIs and use them within the game. They look awful to start with.
Nah, I don't think so.
Well, you can use these. These are like fully functional examples. So, for example, I created a user earlier, GK user1, and test 4. And you can hit call API and you get back a result, which is GameKit success. You can also look at some of that in the output as well. So it'll tell you what happened. Again, I'm getting a lot of noise right now, so my output window is not very fun to look at.
This type of thing always happens when we're doing live streams and you're trying to show a demo. Don't worry.
Wow.
So just to clarify, so you showed us that there's 2 different ways to essentially add GameKit to your Unreal project. The first way would be you could essentially code it up manually, or you could be essentially copying it from the examples that are already provided and then start modifying from there. Or you could use the blueprint, where it's more of a drag and drop, and then it places this entire like essentially test, I guess, would it be like considered like a test screen, so that you can actually check out the login, the forget password, and making sure that these things are actually working?
That's right. And then there is for people that are familiar with Unreal, we do have blueprint examples essentially. So these blueprint examples, let me just pull that up a little bit. So in this case, when you double click on that round sphere there, it will pull up the blueprint example, which is more of a visual coding example. And over here, you can kind of like see what's going on. It is kind of like event begin and has a bunch of things, had to viewport. This is one part of it. And then you can actually, so this is that, and then this is the UI pieces. So these are this is the UI editor view of it. So you can actually go in and update and change these or the logic behind them as well.
All right. So Ollie, this looks really, this looks like amazing, because it seems like you're gonna have 4 features in your game relatively quickly. I mean, you said half an hour, like that's pretty impressive. It's drag and drop or copy and paste just to get started, and then you can continue to modify it. So that sounds amazing. Have we pretty much covered everything that we wanted to cover in the demo today, or is there something else that you
I think I've just touched the tip of the iceberg here. Let me go faster than this. We talked about the I do want to show one more feature at least, or just the achievements feature, and then I have a super cool demo at the end that I'm hoping that we can get through as well.
All right, let's go through the achievements thing real quick, because I think the full demo at the end, that sounds pretty cool too.
Yeah.
All right. So I wanted to touch on the achievements part of it. I wanted to show how easy and quick it is for us to add achievements to your game. So let me pull up the settings window again. So you will go back to the plugins, you go back to AWS GameKit, and then you code down. And so there is this button which says configure. And you click on that one, it comes up with another visual editor, which lets you essentially create and edit achievements. So this was something that I created earlier. For example, hey, baby archer, shoot 10 arrows. Once you shoot 10 arrows, you achieve this. You can set up what the locked icon is, what the unlocked icon is, how many steps there are. So this is kind of like things you would consider like an achievement. So is this visible to the player? Is this invisible to the player? Can it be achieved? Cannot be achieved? Cannot be achieved are things that you are deprecated. Sort order, kind of like whatever you see in here is what the customer sees when they pull in the achievements. And then, so I already configured these beforehand, but adding a new achievement is simple as just kind of like, hey, click on this. It comes up with a new achievement, and then you can fill in these values in there. Once you're done, I'm going to do that. You can say save data to cloud. And what it does is it actually saves all this configuration back into your services so that when you call this from your game client, these becomes available to you. One of the nice things about this is also it's using CloudFront and everything. So these images are getting served from CloudFront, so you don't have to worry about latency and all some of these pieces in there. So all of this is kind of like, again, part of well-architected solution for us.
Got it. Well, are we able to see the achievements in action in your other demo?
Yes.
Let's take a look.
All right. So let's look at our auto demo. So, all right, cool. So this is an action RPG game. We do not take the credits for this. This is actually available from Unreal. It is available on their website, which is, if you just search for sample RPG game, what it let us do is at least what we did here is we took this action RPG game, which didn't have all of these backend cloud services associated with it, and we added these features to it. So all it came was with just a sample, which is you can kind of like had a level where you could kind of like kill some monsters and collect some stuff. What we did in here is we integrated that with AWS GameKit. Let me just show that to you. So you see the achievements in here as well. And then I'll show that to you in the game as well. So similar environment, we have everything set up. You look at this achievement data, and you have this beginner, veteran. You can kind of like see this is like more polished version of it. We have much better icons and stuff. And the other two features that we didn't talk as much about, game state cloud saving and user gameplay data. Game state cloud saving can essentially be used for loading and saving games. Like that's one of the ways in which we see it being used. As if you want to save your progress, for example, you can use this to save that. User gameplay data is sent for like, hey, you want to save your inventory, you want to save the state of the player at that point. You can use that for that.
Got it. Okay.
All right, so let's look at how this looks like when we play the game.
And while we wait for that, the first person that adds, game state saving into their game, and then they are able to figure out how to clone one of their pocket monsters, let me know. If you know, you know.
All right, cool. So here's an example. And then if you look at the achievements, all those achievements that we saw there in the backend are now available in the game and integrated into it.
Got it.
So
Very
this is, you can go to the options and you can clear the save data. This is where the game state's cloud saving kind of is used. And also as you kind of like start the game, and this is playable at this point. I'm sure the frame rate is going to be terrible as you enter into it. But as you play around, you kind of get the idea of that.
All right. Ali is the new live streamer on Twitch. We are officially a gaming channel now.
So that was just like a quick example where we now have this fully working game. We plan to release this as open source as well, so that customers can take this and also look at how things were implemented into this using GameKit and use that in their own project.
Wow, that's really cool. So, I mean, I really have been wanting to get into game development, and now just like knowing that, I could spin up a couple of features. Like the biggest one for me is like actually being able to create a user's account, like because that's where like everything that's like the starting point for even regular apps, right? You have to sign in, you have to sign up or whatever. Same thing for your game. Like you want to save your progress, it has to be tied to your account. So like having amazing features like this that are so that have been made so simple to add to your entire game with just a couple of clicks, that seems pretty amazing.
Cool.
But
And then
anything else that you wanted to show to us, Ollie?
I wanted to show you how to get to this, and then how we right. I think I have a few more things in the demo, but I want to kind of skip to like a little bit on talking about where you can find AWS GameKit and documentation around there. So it is available on aws.amazon.com/GameKit. You can download it right from there, so you'll get your GameKit plugin right there. We have tutorials and like a little bit of like how it works, resources in there. And then it is also available on Unreal Engine Marketplace itself. To start off with, we support Windows/PC gaming on Unreal. Very soon, we're going to also support mobile gaming on Unreal, and then follow that with Unity as well. So we have support for these coming in the future releases.
Well, that makes me pretty happy because that's exactly what I am. I am a mobile developer, and I would love to actually take advantage of this and not have to learn how to do Windows development just for that sake. So yeah, when it comes to mobile development, we definitely have to have you back on here, and I really want to jump into that.
Absolutely. I would be happy to come and talk about mobile development, Unity development. I did mention earlier and we didn't get, but this is an open source as well. So all the code is available on GitHub as well. So if you go search for AWS GameKit on GitHub, you will find all the source code there.
Yeah, we actually have it. We have it posted in the chat, so make sure you check out chat right now, and you should be able to click that link. It'll take you over to GitHub right now, so you can check out the repo. And you want to fork it, you want to start contributing to it. Just take a look at it. We all want GameKit to get better, don't we?
Absolutely. We are super excited about this product, and we want to hear from our community as well, and kind of like see what amazing games get developed using GameKit.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know if you start using GameKit and it's in your game. Let Ollie know. Let me know. I want to see it. We want to see it. We want to. Hey, and hey, if it's using GameKit and we can say, hey, look at this game. Look at using it. I mean, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
So. But thank you so much, Ollie. I really appreciate you being on here talking about GameKit. Really excited. I personally can't wait until there's more improvements on it where it's like mobile available. So I'm gonna be looking forward to having you back on again. But thank you so much for joining us here.
Thank you so much, Kyle and Brian, for having me over. And it was a pleasure talking to you and talking to our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So you have a good rest of your Friday, and you take care. All right.
Absolutely. Thank you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. So, Brian, I mean, I gotta say, like, today was pretty impressive. There was some pretty unique and interesting stuff that we talked about. I mean, what did you think?
Oh, super exciting. I mean, all these cool features, man, especially around the game engine and just having a way to deploy to the cloud with one click. And then we have the database solution. Oh, man, I'm just smiling from ear to ear. Like, my face is hurting right now.
Yeah, hey, yeah, I know. I saw your face light up every time CloudFormation was mentioned. I was like, oh man, he's gonna be having a good time.
I know. I'm like, can we end the show early so I can go play with this stuff? Got stuff to do, right?
You're right. You're right. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on AWS On Air. Another huge shout out to our ASL interpreters, Meadow and Janisa. I always mess up her name. I'm so sorry, Janisa. And Brian, thank you for joining me here on the show. It's so great for us to like hang out together. I had a pretty good time.
Absolutely. And then anyone follow me on social media at me. I Need Help Brian. You can find me on LinkedIn. Hit me up. Ping me on Twitter, man. I'm active. So yeah.
There you go. And once again, I am your other host, Kyle Lee, and you can also find me right here on Twitter at Kilo_Loco. And I am a developer advocate on the AWS Amplify team. So once again, thank you for joining us here on AWS On Air. We will be back next week. So if you're interested in what new cool things are coming out, we're here every week. So have a great rest of the day and happy Friday.